Based on everything previously stated, we can draw some obvious conclusions. It has been proven experimentally that a general unity exists behind all phenomena. A multitude of objects is nothing but an illusion. On the most profound level, in the subatomic world, what we see as material particles becomes a field of energy waves where divisions into space and time no longer apply. This field manifests the property of timeless and spaceless unity. From this universal field, appropriately named the universal quantum field, and throughout history known as ether or akasha, with growing complex vibrations, formations are created that act as specific subatomic elements. Afterwards come atoms and all the bigger and more complex constructs, which has the physical world we perceive as its ultimate achievement. Therefore, the electromagnetic forces of the quantum field or plasma are the foundation of overall nature. They enable all the complex constructs, atoms, molecules, all chemical reactions, and biological creations. At the base of all material phenomena are the vibrations of pure energy, whose nature is momentary and unsubstantial. This is the reality of the physical world we perceive, but even in its grossest form, it has not lost its basic reality in the quantum field or ether. The only thing that has changed is the perception conditioned by the mind of conscious subjects, which we are. However, the quantum field is not the tiniest aspect of all. Only quantum physicists may anticipate it as such with their accelerators. The old Sanskrit word for the quantum field is akasha, and it denotes space. Therefore, the quantum field is all of space that contains the entire cosmos and all of nature, ourselves included. We are in it all the time. That is the way in which the quantum field contains everything else. If everything is momentary and unsubstantial because electromagnetism is the foundation of everything, what keeps the solid forms of the world we live in together? Consciousness is the foundation of all forms. Without consciousness and conscious intent, everything would be a diffuse field of electromagnetic forces. Frequencies would be devoid of the sense of shaping. Everything that exists is consciousness formed into an intent. In higher dimensions, air, it is an idea. In the lower ones, this idea gets formed into an energy process, fire, that assumes a consistent and permanent shape, water, of some phenomenon on Earth. Hence, our body and everything we see and touch around ourselves is in reality merely consciousness shaped into some form that assumes this solid shape only for the sake of the intent to exist that way. Everything is alive and aware of itself. If we are alive and aware of ourselves, it should not be too difficult for us to understand everything around us, starting with the earth that sustains and feeds us, then all the objects, beings, and phenomena. We do not exist in the world of separate objects. We are merely a drop in the ocean of conscious energy. In the beginning, we stated that consciousness and existence are the same. We only perceive them differently. Existence is outward and gross, and consciousness is within. It represents our ability to perceive and comprehend gross forms, existence itself. If consciousness and existence were not the same, they could not merge in understanding. Overall, life consists of this unity of the perceiving and discovering of meaning. The sense of shaping everything in nature comes from the principle of consciousness, which can only be expressed through a conscious subject. The conscious subject is the principle behind the shaping of everything in nature. It is in charge of giving a certain shape to everything in nature. Nothing is diffuse and chaotic, although everything is a wave, momentary and unsubstantial. A conscious subject originates from the principle of individuation or the shaping of overall phenomena. The same principle shapes our I am, self-consciousness, awareness of its oneself, as well as the whole of objective nature, all the shapes and processes a self-conscious subject can perceive. Every shape in nature has awareness of itself, a conscious intention to exist in this form. This intention maintains a given form, otherwise it would be nothing but a diffuse field of energy. Every form in nature has awareness of itself that it receives from the conscious subject. In higher dimensions, conscious subjects are souls. On lower human beings, incarnated souls with minds, awareness of oneself is automatically projected because the universe is a hologram. Everything gets reflected in everything else. When awareness of oneself appears in a conscious subject, like I am, for instance, it automatically reflects the forming of overall nature. All frequencies, information, and ideas ultimately become solid forms. Awareness of oneself is impossible without a form. A conscious subject cannot exist without the world of objects. The shape and information idea of the shape are identical in the highest dimension in ether or akasha. They become different on lower dimensions and completely separate only in the element of earth. This process of separation is done by lowering the consciousness of oneself into a physical body, into the mind or reason. In a conscious subject, objective nature unites into one. In such a way, the subject who perceives the process of perception and the objects that are perceived all fall under one category. Awareness of this unity is realized in the next higher category, in the higher mind or pure consciousness. Patanjali, based on the teaching of Samkhya, elaborated on these Yoga Sutras as samadhi and defined them as the unity of the subject and the object of perception, consciousness of unity, or the transcendental consciousness that exceeds divisions into subject, object, matter. The entire process of dividing the idea from the form is needed for all ideas to be defined in all their possibilities and to be connected into one whole. Such a thing is possible only in a three-dimensional, inert, solid enough field like the physical world or the element that Earth is. Therefore, the element of Earth is not merely one of the elements nor one of the dimensions, but a collection of all the other dimensions and elements and the background for their manifestation and objectively experiencing all their possibilities. Only in this physical world is it possible to view ideas in all their aspects in parallel and to toy with their potentials both as objects and ideas. To emphasize the importance of everything stated, we will include one additional point. The identical principle gives form to everything in nature and constitutes our I am consciousness, our identity. It is necessary for harmonizing our functioning with the world. It means that to the degree we are aware of ourselves and have an integrated consciousness of ourselves, to the same degree we can modify the world and function in it. And the more our consciousness of ourselves is constructive and integrated, the more constructive and harmonious our functioning in the world will be. It must be connected with the same principle. Its external functioning is forming nature and the world, while its internal functioning is integrating consciousness of oneself, accumulating information of all forms of existence into one place, into consciousness of the subject as I am. Physically, the world is as solid and stable as our I is. Once we become devoid of our I and our reason, we instantly find ourselves in some other world. We are in the physical world only when we are in the physical mind. When we are in a dream or coma, the physical world disappears. Only if we have become aware of our inner senses can we fully aware, even out of the body and in other dimensions as well. Can we be fully aware? Looking for that word, be there. Only in the interpretation of the empirical mind does the world appear the way it does, as the whole of gross objects, separate in space and time. Once the mind is transcended and objective awareness of nature is attained, its ethereal essence is revealed as the unity of everything outside space and time. This means it becomes apparent that everything is shaped and moved by consciousness and will. To see such unity and transcendental divine consciousness in the foundation of everything is possible only if one realizes that nothing is substantial and that everything is momentary. It brings us to the following conclusion. If nothing is substantial and everything is momentary, this is the only way for overall motion and constant change to exist in the universe. It is a well-known fact that nothing in the universe is identical or static. Everything undergoes constant change. Hence, the universe is nothing but an expression of overall change. All the motion and all the change can be brought about only because nothing is substantial. Everything originates momentarily from the quantum soup as momentary vibrations of a single divine particle in which all potentials are already immanent. Therefore, nothing new is generated but moves from its implicit to its explicit state, from the potential to the actualized. Since everything is momentary and unsubstantial, all motion always takes place irrelevant of space and time, which is why it always creates parallel realities. This conclusion leads us to yet another conclusion here. Due to the same insubstantiality and momentariness and the fact that it is not time-related, the universe exists perpetually in all possible realities that coexist in parallel. Reality consists of all possible realities that happen in parallel and permeate one another. However, there are also multiple dimensions, and the human is made up of all of them. Parallel realities are one way in which motion together with all the changes can manifest. The universe is everything that is, and it always manifests as everything that can be. If there were only one space and time as the real, in common, conditional frame for all things to happen within, there would have to be only one reality that changes in a linear and causal way from one into the other. However, since the foundation of nature is devoid of space and time, but is rather all one with all potentials for manifestation, it is clear that all its possibilities get manifested in parallel, simultaneously happening as we speak, or better yet, they have already manifested. The mind is the only factor that prevents the perception of the whole reality in which all possibilities exist in parallel from happening, which, from the proverbial quantum soup of all possibilities, like a little child chews one by one from the available alternatives what they like and what not, and by so doing creates a subjective impression of linear events in space and time, since the mind is an instrument for the some aspect of ASMR, since I'm not whispering. For the functioning of consciousness in a three-dimensional physical way, it is the only projector of linear time because it takes itself as the reference point for all spatial motion. The same way that something spatial is sometimes nearer and sometimes more distant, in the same way in terms of time something is more recent or later, due to the simple fact that such minds are in abundance according to the law of free creation of new simultaneous realities. They collectively create the physical reality we live in which there are objects before our bodily emergence that also remain after its disappearance. Something is familiar to us in terms of space and time, yet something seems off. Although this reality is subjective for the subjects who create and live together in it, it has objective value, hence it becomes objective to them. The nature of each reality is to seem real, as though it were the only one around. It could not keep for long otherwise. Consciousness creates everything, both the subjective and the objective realities. This further leads us to one minor but significant conclusion. Consciousness is present in the mind because there is no substantiality, everything is momentary, and all possible realities take place in parallel. In the space between two moments of existence, everything is reset and returns to its original state of unmanifested divine absolute, the source of consciousness and existence itself. This makes that source readily available to us at all times, although consciousness is present in each moment of existence as the supreme attractor of the energy of motion and the shaping of overall existence. In the same way, the mind also uses this source of consciousness every single moment. If everything existed substantially separate in space and time, the road from the source of consciousness to our mind would indeed be long. Momentariness is the only way in which consciousness can be readily available to us. In a nutshell, the unsubstantiality of all constructs and the momentariness of all phenomena are the same. They reflect the electromagnetic wave nature of the quantum field. This wave nature is the source of overall motion, whereas motion itself is energy. Hence, all life energy comes from the insubstantiality of nature and the momentariness of events. They further enable the interval between two moments of any given reality to return to the original state of the divine absolute, which is the source of consciousness and energy, which makes the source of divine energy always within reach in the whole creation, in all phenomena, and in all beings as their creator. The very nature of parallel realities displays to the individual mind one thing in several aspects, like a multitude. Consciousness enables the mind to be above all parallel realities because the fact that we can be aware of them to a certain degree means we can debate about them here. In such a manner, objective reality exists as only one divine consciousness and presence, and this one to an individual mind that is identified with one reality only gets manifested as the multitude of realities. Using parallel realities, the individual mind becomes acquainted with all the aspects of one reality, which was the initial intention of the divine consciousness upon manifesting itself into existence. The concept of parallel realities accelerates maximally and facilitates the awareness of all the potentials of existence. Nature is always maximally efficient and rational. The objective reality we are familiar with in space and time is made up of all the parallel realities that are independent of space and time. It is brought about by the collective influence of the conscious subjects, the monads of consciousness, that the divine absolute manifests from itself to actualize itself in all possible aspects. These monads of divine consciousness are what we know as souls. In other words, souls created the whole physical universe as a stage on which everything that is experiences everything that can be. Before we set upon an arduous journey of observing the karmic drama of souls, let us investigate first how this stage was built before they came upon it.